everyone. First of all, we want to welcome you as a Sports Club member and to say that the tape you're about to see is done especially for you. We have chosen what we feel is the best of some of the stories that we did in 1990 during the Winston Cup season.
And we're fortunate enough to be able to bring you 52 shows a year on the Nashville Network, and Ned, that's a lot of stories. One of the very first stories we did at the beginning of the 1990 season was we followed Mickey Gibbs, the driver, through Daytona Speed Weeks in his attempt to qualify for the 500, and Ned, that was quite a struggle.
It certainly was, and we had a lot of comments about that story. Another story that drew a lot of interest was on the spotters in racing, the fellows who guide their driver around on Sunday afternoon at a NASCAR Winston Cup race. Mark Cronquist is the spotter for Michael Waltrip. Let's take a look at those two stories.
After starting dead last in the 1989 Daytona 500, Mickey Gibbs was counting on a new sponsor and a new crew chief by the name of David Iff to hopefully help improve his starting spot for this season's Great American Race. The 31-year-old from Glencoe, Alabama, knows what it's like to win. He dominated the All-American Challenge Series in 1985 by winning the most races and most poles. He did the same on the All-Pro circuit in 1987. But this was Daytona, and he would be happy just to line up his special days in T-Bird on the starting grid. His first step came in qualifying. A lap of 192 he thought would be good enough. But down on horsepower, a lap of 190 and change was all he could do. Knowing that if he failed to finish in the top 15 of his qualifying race, his one-lap time of 47.212 might not be good enough. Mickey decided to requalify. But first, the team would have to make some major changes.
Found a little bit of things to change in the engine department. We ran the car 4 or 5 times yesterday, and we just got as fast as we felt we could go, so it was time to make a change.
And what is the change in the engine department?
Well, we're working on the intake and, pretty much what everybody else does with these restrictor plates. We wound up getting an intake from a good friend, which I won't say who it is, but I hope it's going to pick us up a little bit.
Okay, so you won't say who the engine is from, but it's going to pick you up, you think?
I feel pretty sure it will.
His team started changing engines at 9 a.m. It was now 10 a.m. Only 1 hour of practice time remained until qualifying. The team continued to thrash, yet trying to make sure of every detail. The clock was running. All Mickey could do was sit, anxiously, helplessly, waiting and hoping. Finally, they cranked it up, but there was a problem. The rod bolts are hitting the oil pan. Back under the car they go.
Give me them 7/16 wheels there to get the pan.
The crew is now at a frantic pace. Mickey's mind is on his car, but he graciously talks to me, and he's introduced to a man that will market clothing for him this season.
Mickey, this is Joe Whitley. Works
Hi, Joe.
Sportswear and stuff.
Nice to meet you.
One of their this is the company we're going to be talking with Richard Winston Joe about doing your paraphernalia, your shirts, your hats, your jacket.
Robert Yates, the source of Mickey's help, came in to check on him.
They just took it off, beat on it. They took it off, beat on it a little bit. I think maybe they got it clearer now.
Get a lap?
Not yet. Got 30 minutes. Maybe we'll get a lap. I'd like to get one anyway.
Finally, the car is ready, and Mickey takes it out for a practice run. A new engine and just 5 minutes worth of practice would determine whether Mickey Gibbs made the Daytona 500 or not. All right, Mickey, you had a chance. You only had about 5 minutes to go out there, run a couple of laps. How was it?
Well, we really don't know again, Randy. We went out going to try to get one good lap in to see how the chassis felt with the new motor in it, and there were so many cars out drafting and trying to get hooked up, we didn't even get a full lap in. So all we can do now is just hope for the best, and I feel like it'll pick us up, but you don't know till you go. So we'll see when we run our next lap.
It was now time to see if re-qualifying was the right choice. Back in the garage area, Mickey received the bad news. His lap was 2 miles an hour slower. Unbeknownst to the team, the engine had a problem. Mickey would now have to start 24th in his 125 and definitely finish in the top 15.
Well, it's like I told Dave this morning. I said, we came down here to race. Now we're just going to have to start racing harder earlier. So we're going to have to come from the back of the pack, have a good pit stop, I hope, and, come in, maybe just get a splash of gas and get back up with the fast cars and hang on and finish up in the top 14.
It's not the first time we've been at the back of the pack. Of course, this is the big league. It's not like starting at the back of the pack short track racing, but still same old thing. You either get there or you don't, and I know he'll drive his heart out.
Mickey did drive his heart out, but he couldn't avoid a spinning Mark Stahl having to go through the grass to miss him, and with that incident, he would go a lap down, and it would ruin any chances of him lining up for the 500. He would have to wait another year.
Well, it's the biggest disappointment a racer can have. You know, we got a new sponsor with the Special Days In, folks, and we really wanted to put on a show for them here in Daytona, like everyone does. You know, I hate to keep saying I'm sorry, and, you know, we hate we missed it, but that's all we can say. You know, we tried our best, and the guys worked hard all week, done all they could do. It just didn't work out for us. Now we got a couple of days extra to get ready for Richmond, so we're going to look at it in a positive sense instead of the negative.
With that kind of attitude, don't be surprised if the next underdog to roll into victory lane at Daytona is Mickey Gibbs.
For Mark Cronquist, work begins early in the week. He is the motorman on Michael Waltrip's Pontiac. His job is a pivotal part of the team's pre-race preparation. But on Sundays during the season, Mark finishes his fine-tuning, then leaves the crew to climb high above the track. Mark is the spotter for Michael, a second set of eyes, strategically focused well in front of Waltrip.
I try to stay like a half a straight stretch or a quarter of a straight stretch ahead of him at all times. I don't try watching him, and I mainly try to watch in the corners because that's where most accidents happen, and blown motors will usually happen going into the corners. So I try to watch in them areas mostly.
It's been fun for me to have him on the radio and have someone that I can 100% rely on to be correct when something goes wrong.
Like if an accident happens in one corner and he's in the other corner, I'll wait till he gets out of that corner, because if you talk and you jump in there, it might scare him and he might do something, you know, and I try not ever talking to him in the corners.
This might look like the best seat on a Sunday, but spotting is a demanding and disciplined role on a race team. You watch the track, not the race.
Right, and a lot of people say, well, spotting could be easy, but stay here at Rockingham for 5 hours and stare into this sun all day long. It really wear you out mentally, and if like when we run good, it's really hard not to watch Mike because he's doing a good job, and then you got to watch the cars in front of him, and you can't watch him.
So Mark and Michael work as a team, trying to keep the country time car out of trouble on the track. Now, no race is routine, and one of Mark's toughest calls, well, it came this summer.
My best one was at Daytona during that big crash during the 400. I just told him, I said, there's a crash ahead. I said, I can't tell you where to go. You know, and really you can't, but a lot of times if there's a crash and the cars will be high, I'll tell him to go low, or I'll tell him to go high when he should go high and stuff like that. Go high, go high. Clear now.
Additionally, Mark serves as a spy, keeping an eye on the front runners, watching for the fastest route around the track.
Like Elliott at Charlotte last weekend, he was really hooked up good. You know, Mike wanted to know where he was running because he was so far ahead of everybody, nobody could see him. So Mike, you know, and that'll help Mike sometimes if he's having a hard time, he can work where the leaders are running. Sometimes that don't work.
You know, Mark knows when to come in there and tell me that I might ought to adjust my line, or he doesn't ever say that. He just says, well, the leaders are running high in 1 and 2, and you're running low, so you might want to move up. And I'll run a few laps and try it, and he's able to say, you know, that's right where they're at. And then I take the information I'm getting from the crew who are telling me how fast I'm running, and I'll relate that to where I'm running on the track, so he can see the whole pit road. And if guys are getting 4 tires, he'll pass that information along. If they're just getting 2, he'll also relay that. And plus, if I want to cuss somebody out on the racetrack, I tell him, and he goes and tells their spotter, and I can get my frustrations out that way.
For Mark, there is one tempting desire to occasionally steal a glance at Waltrip's car. Remember, that is his motor under the hood.
It gets hard at Daytona and Talladega when you're trying to say, well, is this motor a good motor? And you try watching that, and then you got one eye on the corner. You know, I kind of cheat sometimes. I kind of watch that too. So
during my career, I've watched the evolution of another extremely important part of the crew, and that's the spotter.
Go high, go high.
You know, Randy, there are a lot of interesting jobs in the sport of auto racing, and most of them carry a lot of responsibility. For example, the pace car driver, which is currently being done by Elmo Langley, a former driver in Winston Cup racing. In fact, I raced against him, and he's a past winner in Winston Cup racing.
And Ned, not only that, he came back to win the Winston Legends race at Charlotte, which had a lot of fanfare involved in that. But his job today is to drive the pace car, and our producer Scott Dallas got a chance to ride along with him in a spring race in 1990 in Atlanta. He didn't get out on the racetrack as often as he wanted to, but nonetheless, we got a great story out of it.
It was a great story. Another story, we started our Weekend Warrior series. Our first subject was Walter Smith. Now, he's the jack man for the Hendrick Motorsports car number 5 team at that time.
But Ned, he also has another job. He owns a gym just outside of Charlotte, and he trains a lot of the Winston Cup drivers as well as himself.
The NASCAR pace car is one car that has the distinction of running in front of guys like Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt each and every week on the Winston Cup circuit. Former NASCAR driver Elmo Langley handles the duties nowadays behind the wheel of this brightly lit car of authority. After keeping the field at the proper pace to ensure a safe start of any event, Elmo must then sit and be ready to stomp the gas and pick up the leader at a moment's caution.
It's a little bit more difficult than a lot of people think it is, because you got to look at a lot of things and keep track of a lot of things. You got to be on your toes when you pick them up. And running the Winston Cup cars, you pretty well know the drivers. You know what they're going to do, if they're going to back down for you. The main thing, you know, is to know where the leader is and be able to, if he gets the caution, to pick him up first lap. And then when a caution does come out, if it's an accident or debris on the racetrack or somebody blows an engine, it's up to me to decide when the track is ready to go back racing again. So I've got to look at those things. If there's any debris, then we need to not go until it's all picked up, until the track surface is ready to go again. It's all that's kind of laid on my shoulders, because I'm the eyes for the tire on the racetrack. So.
Elmo would have to go back to work quickly on the day of the Motorcraft 500 as Terry Labonte blew an engine on lap 4.
Here, got it, leader. It's a 3 car. Stand on it, Elmo. We'll get him in time. Tommy, get ready to come on out. I don't take no chances over there. He's on the bottom white line. It started at the blend line to 3. You stay at the bottom and come on around.
Elmo quickly gets the car up to speed, which on this afternoon at Atlanta, the pace car speed was 65 miles per hour. Elmo listens for instructions from the tower over his 2-way radio. He's online with the flagman, NASCAR spotters, and the safety crew. The safety crew was unable to find the oil from the expired engine.
Tommy, hold tight. Let Elmo look at it. We may save a lap or two.
Right there where you are is where I saw the smoke, Elmo. Down that white line's the only place it could be.
I don't see any oil, Tire. I don't see anything you put down.
Once the cars were back in line, Elmo once again took the field to the green flag. And just as quickly as things revved up, they would slow down for Elmo. The race went green for nearly 2.5 hours. That might be the toughest part of the job, knowing who the leader is during green flag pit stops.
It can kind of get confusing doing a series of green flag pit stops. And if you get a yellow now, a caution comes out now in the middle of all this, that's when everybody, really has to be on the ball.
Elmo Langley sits, listens, and watches Winston Cup racing from a very unique perspective, knowing that at any moment he could be called upon to set the pace of a Winston Cup race.
Go, caution car, go, stand on it, Elmo.
Then up real slow, really fight it. Really fight it.
By trade, Walter Smith is a physical trainer. He and his brother own 2 Nautilus fitness centers in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. His list of clientele reads like a who's who in Winston Cup racing. Rob Moroso, Ricky Rudd, Michael Waltrip, and Waddell Wilson frequent the gym several times a week.
That's what we're looking for. Okay, try to keep that head back. Good. A little bit slower when you come back, Waddell. Just a little bit. Looking good. Give me 2 more.
Even after working as many as 80 hours a week in his gym, Walter still has no trouble getting ready for the weekend when he dons the yellow and white as the jack man on the Levi Garrett racing team.
It's so easy to get pumped up, and the euphoria you feel is so high before the start of the race. And at Rockingham last week, we were just so keyed up. Even though we had a bad start, we had a bad qualifying session, the car wasn't handling right, started in 25th position. As soon as the green flag dropped, as soon as Ricky started passing those cars, before we knew it, after 20 laps, he was in 5th place. The car was running great, and it's hard to describe how you feel when that happens. Unfortunately, the other aspect of racing, the lows, came in soon after that when the car developed a crack in the oil pan, and we were forced to drop out of the race.
Walter Smith has been frequenting racetracks for 6 years, lending help where needed. He worked for Lake Speed in 1988 when Speed collected his first and only Winston Cup win. He also worked for the Darrell Waltrip team before joining Rick Hendrick's Levi Garrett crew last year. Being a weekend warrior is technically a part-time job, but Smith feels very much a part of the team.
Here we're very, very active in it. All the part-timers on the team are treated the same, and I just can't say enough about the Rick Hendrick organization, the people from Levi Garrett and the driver and the crew guys. They treat you as if what you do is just as important as what Waddell does or what Rick Hendrick does. And that's one of the things I really, really like about this organization.
The topic, are race car drivers true athletes, has long been debated. No one is better qualified to answer that question than Walter Smith.
Drivers, I find, they're very talented individuals. They don't get enough credit for the job they do out there. The conditions they work under, the high heat, the stress, the G-forces that are involved in driving a race car, it's just tremendous. And the average person really has a hard time realizing it until you're out at Talladega in the middle of the summer and you know the heat that comes just being on pit road. And then, of course, you have to greatly increase the temperature when you're inside a race car. So these guys are definitely athletes.
For years, race fan Walter Smith was on the outside looking in. But today, the situation is working out for the best.
Basically, right now, I think I've kind of crossed the line. I'm still a fan. I love to see things like Derek Cope winning Daytona. You know, you always pull. Your number one priority, of course, is to pull for your driver. If you cannot win a race, you like to see a Derek Cope win a race. You like to see a Kyle Petty do good and win a race. You like to see anything that will bring excitement to Winston Cup racing. So I consider myself, I'll always be a fan. I consider myself more a part of a large family, a large select family right now.
Randy, I guess one of the toughest things that any athlete in any sport has to face is his day of retirement. Now, if you're able to plan it like I did, maybe it's a little bit easier to swallow. But if you're forced into it like Neil Bonnet was after his injury in the Trans-South 500 at Darlington, South Carolina back in 1990, boy, that has to be a tough pill to swallow.
No doubt about it, Ned, especially as successful as Neil was. He won a lot of races in Winston Cup racing, but he did suffer a lot of injuries as well, and it was that final one that put him out of the sport. A few months after that, Neil invited us down to his house in Bessemer, Alabama, where he was very candid and very emotional in his interview.
Neil Bonnet's 16-year Winston Cup career has been one filled with extremes. He's battled side by side with the best of them, never giving an inch. It's that hard-charging style that has placed Neil in victory lane 18 times. A member of the legendary Alabama gang, Neil was a Bobby Allison protege. And like Allison, Bonnet has had to take his share of hard licks over the years. And in recent years, more than his share, like this wreck at Pocono in 1986, in which Neil broke 3 ribs, had a punctured lung, a bruised heart, and a broken shoulder. This wreck in 1987 at Charlotte broke Bonnet's right leg, and also as a result of the accident, Neil underwent gallbladder surgery. Then at Dover in 1988, Neil would be involved in a multi-car wreck, this time a broken sternum. But it was April 1st, 1990 at the Southern 500 in Darlington that Neil would suffer his worst crash. This time, there were no broken bones. It was worse. A severe head injury left him with temporary amnesia. The question remains whether Neil will ever drive again.
As you sit right now, Neil, do you want to get back into a race car?
I'll tell you what, I almost have to avoid your question because I know what I want to do, and every time I start letting that enter into my decision, then I get depressed about it again. I've already made the biggest commitment of my life to say I'm going to listen to what that doctor says. And not only that doctor, 3 doctors. I've had so many MRIs and CAT scans and stuff trying to find an open door to where I can buck their decision to where I can go back racing, that I say, yeah, I'll get back in a race car. But right now, if that guy says you can go back in 6 months or you can go back in a year and a half, I certainly exercise that option. But if he says, hey, look, you don't need to get in a year, and the thing I even hate to say, if he says you can never get in that car, I'm going to listen to him, because I've been through a lot of pain and a lot of injury, but I've never been to the point where I walked up and I didn't know my kids, I didn't know my mother and father, and for 2 weeks I was like that. And when I knew, when I'm around Bobby and I'm kind of wanting him to hurry up and say something, when he came over here and he was talking faster than I could understand, I knew I needed some help. And Bobby and I joke about that, but I was really bad for a while, and I'll take it the way it is now if I don't make any more gains on it, but I couldn't go through that part of it again.
Do you ever feel like it was, you've been unlucky as far as your injuries have gone? I mean, no one has suffered really the major injuries, it seems, that you have.
Well, I've had a lot of people say, boy, you had a lot of bad luck. I had a lot of good luck, too. I was fortunate enough to be with good race teams, fortunate enough to be with people that made me win races. And the wrecking part of it is a part of it that you don't look at, but it's going to happen every now and then. I might have got more than my share of it in the last few years, but I'm not going to complain. In general, my career's been good. I've enjoyed it. I've met a lot of nice people along the way. I've been associated with good people, and I've laid in the hospital a lot, but I've also stood in victory lane a few times. I've always outweighed the bad side of it, and I'll take it. You know, I'd certainly like to not have this broken leg and broken sternum and bruised heart and all that kind of stuff, but I don't look back at that. I look back, everybody says, boy, you know, that was a bad deal at Dover. I won Dover. I broke my sternum at Dover, but I won there also. And they say, boy, Darlington was bad. I won at Darlington. I don't think of the bad sides. I look at the good side of it. So it's been good. I've had some bad luck, but I've had a lot more good luck along with it.
Do you miss driving as much, or is it the camaraderie and the competition factor? I mean, you must miss the people in the sport as well.
Well, it's a combination. I certainly miss not being able to climb in that race car and do what I've done for the last 18 or 20 years. And the part that people don't really realize is I don't know my neighbors at my house right here, the third one down the street, or the guy a quarter mile up the road. But everybody in that garage are friends of mine. They're our family. I've driven for so many of the teams that a lot of the crew members are good personal friends of mine. Excuse me. And I just miss the fans, you know, after the race, going and seeing those guys. It's really a problem. I need to take a little bit more out of it. Pull it back around just a little bit more. Okay.
These days, Neil spends much of his time in his 2-car garage attached to his house, trying to replace the love of turning a steering wheel with the love of turning wrenches for his son David's budding stock car career.
Now I'm his mechanic. I work on the car all the time, and I enjoy sitting in the truck watching him run. It makes me a lot more nervous than when I race myself, and I don't like that part of it, but he's been doing a good job. It's been a lot of fun.
Under Neil's watchful eye, David is racking up a lot of wins on the local level, the number of victories that it takes to win a championship. But checkered flags and championships were never the object of Neil Bonnet's desire.
I never worried about finishing races. I always felt like I should run my car as hard as it would run. And that was a fault of mine. I'll be the first one to tell you, I should have won more races in Winston Cup. I ran cars in the ground, and I stuck them in fences, and I put them in little bitty holes they didn't need to go to. But I was doing it just like I wanted to do it. I was running a car the way I'd always been trained to run one, just as flat as it'd run. And I paid the price. I should have had a lot more wins. I probably should have won twice as many races as I won, but I'll be the first one to tell you, if they let me regroup and go back through there again, I'd do it the same way. I had fun doing it. I enjoyed it. My numbers aren't all that great, but I tell you what, nobody had any more fun than I had doing it.
Well, Neil's certainly doing very well adjusting to not being behind the wheel of a race car. He now owns his own team, and he's in the broadcasting business.
Yes, and he does a good job at it, too. He has the winners program on TNN and also is a color analyst on some CBS and WTBS Winston Cup race shows. And he has a catfish farm down in Alabama and a Honda dealership, so he has plenty to keep him busy. One of the more interesting stories that we did in 1990 involved qualifying and getting ready for it. We followed the 4-car through everything they go through to get ready for qualifying.
And not only that, folks, but I'm sure you remember the Busch Grand National race in Bristol, Tennessee, where Michael Waltrip completely destroyed his automobile, and fortunately, he walked away unscathed.
And that was a miracle. Let's see those two stories now.
Setting up a Winston Cup car for qualifying is a precise and very important task. For each race, the crew must solve the mystery of a different track, racing under different conditions in different weather. Just some of the elements that play a pivotal factor in determining if a car starts first or 31st.
The short track, you know, depends a lot more on handling really than the super speedways does. It's super speedways really relies a lot on power and aerodynamics, where the short tracks really, you know, brakes and handling has got a lot more role to do with it than just raw power.
Qualifying is quick, a heartbeat in the life of a weekend, but it is approached with the same surgical precision as the big race itself, because a successful setup brings rewards and respect.
We actively go after every pole we possibly can. We work real hard at our qualifying setup. Sometimes that may hurt us for the race, but we feel that, you know, we got a baseline for the race, we got a baseline for qualifying, but when we get to the racetrack, we actively chase that qualifying setup. So we work real hard at that. And then, you know, Busch has put up up until this year, it's been $30,000 for the most poles. Now they've added an incentive. It's $10,000 more for the team if you get the most poles. So, man, our guys are working real hard. They're working real hard in the engine shop and that sort of thing. So, plus that prestige of being able to say you were the fastest car at that racetrack. So, it's one reason we try real hard. It gets a lot of exposure for the sponsor. You keep them sponsors happy, like Kodak and Delco Remy and Chevrolet. We've been able to keep a sponsor in the next year.
Qualifying is a race within a race, a 50-yard dash prior to the marathon, demanding different training techniques to meet the contrasting but critical conditions.
A lot of times you'll put thinner oil in. We'll put a 530 weight oil in, Union oil, and then, you know, we run a 2050 in the race. So that makes a little more power when the oil's cold, which the oil's cold when we take off. We'll cool the motor down with water, which what that does is that gets the intake cold for when the gas gets into the intake. It, you know, lets it have cooler gas into the motor. So there's a lot of things they don't let us do that we'd like to do, but you know, there's that. There we put the timing in. We put a flat fan on. You know, we'll run a little more timing because you only have to go one lap. We'll lean the carburetor down to get maximum power, which you can only go 1 or 2 laps like that. Tape the grill up. The more air that gets in the grill makes the car slow down a little more. So when we block it up, it makes all the air go over the top of the car, gets more on the rear spoilers. We run 55 to 60 degrees on a Chevrolet. When we lay the spoiler back, we'll get down to 50 or 45 degrees. Creates less drag, lets the car go through the air more. When it does that, it creates less downforce on the rear tires, which makes the car looser, it frees it up through the middle of the corner if you get it right. Otherwise, it gets a little too loose, you can't drive it.
Now, obviously, the team will watch for trouble under the hood, and they can keep track of tire temperatures as well. But the most essential information comes from this man right here. It's the data the driver can deliver.
Well, that's the key to the whole deal. You know, all the drivers that have had a lot of success in Winston Cup racing are really good at relaying what the car's doing to their crew chief or to their crew. And a lot of drivers can relay what it's doing good, but some of them are not really sure what it is doing. And that's one advantage we have with Ernie. He's got a very good feel of a race car, and he's got a good way of explaining what it's doing.
The Morgan McClure crew runs hard early in the week, so Sunday they can start at or near the front. But the quick qualifying run to grab a good spot on the starting grid is the result of long hours searching for a satisfying setup.
Well, I think it probably makes about the 24th or maybe the 22nd race he's driven our car this year, and I don't think it's ever handled quite good enough to suit him yet, so we're still working on it.
The images of Michael Waltrip's car exploding on impact will never be erased from the minds of the people who were there to witness it. As rescue personnel worked frantically to free Michael, stunned and frightened members of the racing fraternity stood helplessly by, expecting the worst.
I've never seen anything like that, and I don't think I ever will again. He's so fortunate. I would say if he were laying in a coma right now, I'd consider him lucky. And it's just, I'm concentrating on trying to get our car ready for today's race, and I keep thinking back to that. It's just, it's so amazing. And for a minute, nobody wanted to go to the car because they knew what had happened. And his head popped up, and there he was sitting on the ground, and it's just sheer amazement.
Michael had one of the fastest cars on the racetrack that day and was battling Kyle Petty aggressively when he lost control. Just after the restart, Michael had his appointment with destiny.
I remember everything, basically. Got together with Kyle here on the front straightaway and spun out, and took that out. When that happened, came in and got 4 fresh tires, and was coming from the back toward the front again. Our car was running real good. I was real happy with the way everything was going, and caught Robert Presley going into 1 and got up on the outside of him when we come off 2. I don't know if he must not realize I was up beside him, because he came up, and my left front tire must have hit his right rear one, because instead of just brushing, it kind of shot me into the wall. And I remember it hitting, and then I remember I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe, and I must have passed out, because I didn't get knocked out, because it didn't really hit my head. Next thing I remember is coming to and being a lot of people around. When I first wrecked, I didn't know how bad it was. I knew I felt okay, and Darryl come up there crying and carrying on, and a bunch of different people just looking at me like I was in serious trouble. And I said, well, maybe I'm worse off than I think I am, but fortunately that wasn't the case. And spent a night at the Tri-Cities Memorial Hospital there, or Regional Medical Center, and Dr. Brassfield and all his staff did a real good job and took good care of me, and now I'm ready to go. If you're going to race, that kind of stuff is going to happen, and the way I look at it, it just makes me believe more in what I do and what kind of race car I drive, because to go through that right there, people say they hadn't seen anything like that in 40 or 50 years. Well, then I went through that, so I'm safe for another 40 or 50 years probably.
Michael Nett also made the comment that the good Lord said it wasn't your time to go, so he must have something special in mind for you.
Yeah, and I also heard that neither one of them, the good Lord or the devil, either one wanted me, so I was going to have to stay here for a little longer. So I don't know what the case is. I'm just glad that that the good Lord spared me, and I'm able to continue to do what I love to do.
1990 produced one of the best battles for the NASCAR Winston Cup Championship that we've seen in a long time. Dale Earnhardt and Mark Martin went at it tooth and nail. Every race something was going on. It was like a 12-round fight.
No doubt about it. And you would think Mark Martin would be an underdog if it was a 12-round fight, because Mark's about 30 pounds less than Dale Earnhardt. But in a race car, they're both 3,500 pounds, and we took a look at the tail of the tape between those two challengers as they race for the Winston Cup Championship.
In this corner, standing 6 feet tall and weighing in at 180 pounds, with 8 victories on the 1990 campaign trail, and currently second place in the Winston Cup point standings with 3,941 points and over $1.6 million in earnings, the 3-time Winston Cup champion, Dale the Dominator Earnhardt. In the opposite corner, standing 5 foot 6 inches tall, weighing in at 140 pounds, with 3 victories on the campaign trail. Currently the Winston Cup point standings leader with 3,990 points, Mr. Consistency, Mark Martin. With 26 of the 29 races complete, the tail of the tape for these two drivers looks in the favor of Earnhardt. That is, until you get to the most important statistic, Winston Cup points. Earnhardt's hard-charging style has brought his team to victory lane 8 times. It's that same style that has him in the top spot in the category of miles led. Dale has been at the front of the pack for 2,879 miles of the 10,365 miles of competition thus far. That's 27.7% of the miles led. Martin has led but a mere shadow of the miles, registering 553.38 miles. That computes to 5.33%. That's good enough to rank him only in 6th place in those standings. During the races that Earnhardt's car was able to, he has led the field, Whatever he could get out of his car, he got it. If it was good enough to run third, he did. That's why Dale also leads in the True Value Hard Charger category, which awards points by giving 5 points for each lap led, 4 points for each lap run in second, and goes on down to 1 point for 5th place. Multiply the points times the distance of the track, and you'll find Dale once again the leader with 23,347 points. Martin ranks third behind Jeff Bodine with 15,037 points. All of this may lead you to this question. How can Martin be leading in the Winston Cup point standings? Perhaps the biggest reason is that Martin leads in the Sears Die Hard Racer Miles category. Of the possible 10,365 miles run, Martin leads all competitors with 10,285.55 miles completed. That's a completion ratio of 99.23%. Earnhardt uses AC Delco batteries and is ineligible for the contest, but calculating his miles complete shows him 4th overall with 9,743.85 miles completed for a percentage of 94%. The miles completed directly affects the Winston Cup point standings because points are awarded for all positions. The higher the finish, the more the points. Winston Cup points are awarded as follows. 175 points per victory, 5 points to lead a lap. The winner of each event receives 180 points. 5 more bonus points are awarded by leading the most laps. 1st through 6th place finishes has a descending point scale. 6th place receives 150 points. It drops to 4-point increments through 11th place, which receives 130 points, and 3-point increments through the last place finish, which 42nd would be 37 points. It matters not which track or how great the distance or what the purse is. The point scale in all 29 events is the same. Dale has led a lap in 20 events, the most laps 9 different times, for 145 bonus points. Martin has led the most laps only once. That was in his win at Michigan in the Champion Sparkplug 400. He's led a lap on 15 different occasions for a total of 80 bonus points. They each have 16 top 5 finishes. Martin has one more top 10, 21-20 over Earnhardt. And there are more stats on the championship contenders. However you look at the tail of the tape, it still comes down to 3 races. The man that runs the best and has the least bad luck will be the next Winston Cup champion. Good luck to both, and may the best man win.
Randy, 1990 was an exciting year in NASCAR Winston Cup competition, but it was not without tragedy. Mike Rich lost his life in a pit road accident in the last race of the season at the Atlanta Motor Speedway. He was a member of the Bill Elliott crew. Then back in September, young Rob Moroso lost his life in a highway accident. He was destined for stardom. He had already won the NASCAR Busch Grand National Championship and was leading Rookie of the Year standings up to that point, and indeed was awarded the Rookie of the Year honors because of what he had accomplished up to then.
It was truly a tragedy, him losing his life, but Dale Earnhardt was certainly the clear-cut winner in 1990. He won a lot of races and nearly $3 million in prize money, Ned, and he received a lot of that at the Waldorf Astoria in December, where the Winston Cup banquet was held. And that's where we had a chance to talk to Dale when he was staying up in his presidential suite, and he was very loose and on top of the world.
Looking back at 1985, Dale, when Bill Elliott really dominated the season, I think I even heard you say nobody's going to do that again, but you came as close to dominating a season as anybody ever has in this, since maybe the King did back in '67.
Well, it's hard to think that you can go out and win close to a third of the races. You don't really go out planning to do it. You go out wanting to win your share. You know, try to win your part of the races and win the races you can win. And to do it, look back on it, it says, boy, it was really hard, but then some of the races, it just, you know, looks like I should have won maybe even more. It was a real competitive year. We were, you know, we had the problem at Daytona. We could have won that race. You always think about the races you could have won. It was really, you know, an exciting year for us, and to win 9 races, it makes it that much more exciting, plus the Winston. So you count 10 if you want to. Hey, Taylor. Hey. Give me a kiss. Give Daddy a kiss. Give me a kiss.
Look at Taylor.
I love you. I love you. Look back out.
Just coming in, huh?
Hey, Dale Jr. What do you think?
Hey, Dale. Dale, you seem
I'll show them which rooms to use, Teresa, because I already decided how I want them.
Dale, you seem to, you've already won 3 championships prior to this year. Has that let you relax a lot more? I mean, coming in back in even 87, 88, like this year, you had some problems, but you're real cordial to the press all the way through it. Your team battled through the problems, you battled through the problems, but you seem to be so much more at ease with everybody coming up and bothering you at a time that maybe you don't want to talk to anybody. You know, has that changed, or how have you dealt with that?
You learn with the age and experience of everything that happens through your career, the good things and the bad things, to control and, you know, try to do the right thing, say the right things at the right time. The deal at Daytona, we blew the tire out, and we came in the pits, and gosh, I was wanting to cuss, I was wanting to cry, we was let down, I was wanting to go to the truck and hide, you know. A lot of thoughts running through my head, and I just sat there in the car, so just be cool, calm down, think about it a minute. And I thought about it a minute, and then I got out and made my statement, and it worked out real well. I've got a lot of comments on that, and I think I seen right then that it works just to try to stay cool. And any situation that happens to us now, I just try to collect myself and then go from there.
How much better can you as a driver get, Dale? Have you peaked yet, or would you admit it if you had?
Well, I don't know. How do you know whether you peaked? I think it'll have to. The year that when we start going downhill, we can look back and say, well, we peaked last year, you know.
Yeah.
But you know, we've had good years and bad years. The team itself, as a team, Richard Childress's team, we've been together since '84, and we grew from '84 to '86 and won the championship, won in '87. And we had some slumps, the '88 and '89 season. And so you do have bad years. So we thought we peaked in '87. You know, I was thinking, well, maybe '87 was the best it was going to be. And we come back in 1990, so you just keep working for it and looking toward the future. Hopefully we won't peak until maybe 2000.
Was there ever thought in your mind this year, even once, that at one particular time, that maybe you weren't going to catch Mark Martin in that championship? I mean, they were pretty consistent until the last 4 races. I mean, deep down,
there's always the concern that you won't catch a guy or you know, win the championship or win the race or whatever. But you just keep working at it. You keep working as a team as another race is coming. I think the thing that drove us so hard is in Dover when we changed the camshaft and we proved we could fix the car and go back out and we gained some points. And then coming down to the wire, we were just 40-some points in the last 2 races, going into the last 2 races there behind Mark. And the year before, we was 75 going into the last race with Rusty, and we lost by 12 points. And we could have won that championship, and we lost by 12 points. So we didn't, you know, 45 points is nothing, you know, compared to what last year was. And we came out of Phoenix with a 6-point lead. Now, it turned around in 1 race. So there wasn't a point really through the whole season we didn't feel that we had a shot at it. It burned into me. I watched my dad win races, and it just burned into me. And I've drove on that from that time on, is wanting to win. And I didn't have a plan to go from dirt to asphalt to NASCAR to Winston Cup to whatever. It just all fell in place from working hard and the drive to want to win, to want to do better. I took lesser equipment in a lot of races when I was running Sportsman and won with it, and beat guys that had better equipment. And it just comes from the drive and seeing my dad do it, working with what he had to work with, and he raced against a lot of more expensive equipment a lot of times, and Dad would win. And I just kept driving and working hard, and it's just like right now. We've got a lot of things. We've got the championships, but man, when this banquet's over and we go to Daytona, we want to win the Daytona 500. This banquet and this championship's not going to help us win the Daytona 500. We're going to have to go down and work for it. You're going to have that drive and that fire to win. And when this is over, we're looking at 91. We want to be the 91 Winston Cup champions. We want to repeat.
Well, there's no doubt about it. Nobody has any more drive or determination than Dale Earnhardt, Ned, and as long as he's behind the wheel of a race car, he's going to be threatening for a championship.
Oh, no doubt about it. And of course, when he wins his next one, it'll be the 5th, and inching ever so much closer to Richard Petty, who has the record at 7 right now. We hope that you've enjoyed this special tape that we made for you Sports Club fans, and thanks again for being a Sports Club member. We'll see many of you at the races.